talk to you about integrity, to get you thinking about like what integrity is, what does that look like, do you have an idea, and to throw some ideas out there to get you thinking a little bit more about how it's important to look at the integrity of the individual, of the work, the modality that you're pursuing for your self-discovery, self-healing, self-reclaiming, self-exploration, overall healing approach. So the integrity that comes to mind for myself, being a professional in the clinical psychology field, but as well as a human being who has had enough experience at this point to know what's integrity, what's not. It's super important to your healing process to work with an individual that's honest, that has a good standing moral ethics, boundaries, is transparent on things that are necessary, such as where they learned, what they learned, what their relationship is with the person or persons or institution that they learned from, and if it's reciprocal, and specifically in regards to sharing ancient tradition, wisdom, or influence by indigenous individuals or communities, cultures. It's really important to know that, where they stand with that, because that is which they bring into your healing session, your healing experience. That is a lot of background noise and unconscious stuff that you don't necessarily think about, but it's there, and it definitely does impact the outcome sometimes, as well as the actual experience of it, because if an individual is not being authentic or honest and doesn't have a good standing relationship with those that they learned their healing techniques from, it limits them in a lot of ways. I would assume as well, puts a heavy weight on their consciousness and potentially inflates their ego and their abilities to perform. And sometimes, unfortunately, when you don't have a mentor, as we would call it in Western context, or supervisor, or an elder to, put the checks and balances in place to help you grow throughout your experience, and not just, I've learned this, I know how to do it, I know how to apply it, and I'm going to do it, but just the continuing educational piece, the continuing of growing into it and in developing your craft. If that is not in place, if you don't have someone to relate to in that way, harm can happen, and ego gets in the way, and it just isn't a good thing to take on, to just be solely responsible for this sort of healing process of others, when you have a sort of community to, or at least an individual to talk with in regards to how you are as a facilitator, as a guide, as a clinician, as a human being. It just helps you grow and relate to others and create more techniques, or more tricks to the trade to develop it further. So that's really important to have that. Also with integrity is that, within that reciprocal relationship, if it happens to be a tradition that comes from some culture that this individual is not directly from, it's important to know how they are seeing that, Do they make attempts to empower that culture and that community that they are taking this from? Are they directly doing it, indirectly doing it? What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that? How does that sit within you? That this individual does have some sort of reciprocal relationship in giving back, or maybe they don't, and you as someone that's coming to them for these services, if you want to call it that, you have the right to raise questions about that and to hold them accountable. It's in a relationship with someone offering healing or self-discovery or navigating through difficulty or developing, personal growth skills, coping skills, communication skills. It's important for them to get feedback. Myself as a clinician, I really thrive off that, and it helps me do better, be better, and to have an impact on clients that is beneficial for them. So that's super important, and a lot of people they think about it, but they don't really maybe think it through a lot. I see with especially within the what it's being called, which is the psychedelic or entheogenic community, and in ancient traditions, indigenous traditions, it's sacred medicines, it's medicina, and lots of other names depending on what medicine it is. But these mind expansion, mind opening sort of medicines that you take, that you are given an opportunity to let go of this ordinary state that we're in, usually. And a lot of people don't really look at like the impact of using medicines and how it affects the culture that's been protecting it, stewarding it, and sharing it. They don't look at sometimes the sustainability of it, if it's sustainable at all. They sometimes don't look at how just those things in general impact others. And unfortunately, in the Western mind, it is a very commodified sort of approach. It like just take. This is gonna help me better, and turn I can be a better person. If the individual has good intentions, most people do, but again, how effective can you be in this world if you're not looking at those aspects? If you're not looking at how is my engagement, how is my being in spirit with this particular medicine impacting others, just by my very use of it, just by my very pursuit of it, just by my going to the specific place or persons or within this group. And so these are things that our community really needs to start thinking about, and needs to start thinking about it more than just how do I get into psychedelics? How do I get into be a psychedelic integration therapist? How do I do medicine work? How do we do this? There's a lot of curiosity in that, and it's wonderful because we need that in our society. We all have roots connected somewhere, whether it's in Europe, Asia, this continent, Turtle Island, connected to the land somewhere, connected to traditions that honored the earth, that honored Mother. And so we have those roots, and it's so good for all of us to reclaim that, to get back to that, to bring that into our current modern life that we have here. It's so important, more so for humanity than Mother, because Mother was here before us and she'll be here after us. We're definitely doing a bang up job with making her path difficult, but if anything, that desire to stay here, that desire to leave something behind for your children, let alone have children, leave children behind, is important when you look look at all this sort of stuff, looking at like, how is my use, how is my engagement impacting all that? And it's a lot to take in. It's not something you can just come up with an answer right away and, come up with the answer all on your own, especially if you don't come from a community or culture, an upbringing or transmission of knowledge of what those kind of communities look like, where people are in communion with one another in a community context, healing, engaging the sacred, the numinous, the non-ordinary states, what that all looks like. And if you want to continue this conversation, you have questions about it, you can DM me, you can go to my website. Yeah, thank you so much for spending this time with me to contemplate what integrity is and what your relationship with your healing journey and sacred medicines has on the impact on others. So I wish you well. Take care.